My name is Jessica Morales, and I'm 24 years old. To most people, a car might just be a machine, a way to get from point A to point B. But to me, it was more than metal and wheels. It was freedom, proof that years of sweat and sacrifice had meant something. It was mine. I grew up in a working-class family. My father worked construction, my mother worked part-time at a clinic, and money was always stretched thin. I never blamed them for that. It wasn't easy raising two daughters on limited pay. But somewhere along the way, I became invisible in their eyes, the child who would always manage, while my younger sister Sophia was the one who needed everything. If she wanted dance lessons, they found a way to pay. If she wanted a new phone, they bought it on credit. If I asked for anything, the answer was always, "Not now, Jess, maybe later." Later never came. By the time I was 16, I realized if I wanted anything of my own, I'd have to earn it myself. I picked up babysitting jobs, then part-time work at a diner, and eventually a full-time job at an auto parts store while juggling community college. Every dollar I didn't need for gas or books went into a savings account I barely touched. For years, I had one picture taped above my bed, a cherry-red 1969 Mustang Fastback. The lines, the chrome, the sheer power, it called to me like nothing else. While Sophia was posting selfies in new outfits, I was watching restoration videos on YouTube, learning every detail I could about how to care for a classic. By 23, I had scraped together enough, $26,000. Every cent was mine. Earned from weekends I skipped outings with friends, nights I fell asleep at the counter at work, mornings I dragged myself to class with heavy eyes. And when I finally found the listing for a Mustang in near-perfect condition, my heart nearly stopped. I bought it. The day I brought it home, I remember pulling into the driveway, the engine rumbling deep in my chest, neighbors turning to look. For once, I wasn't just Jessica, the girl who kept her head down and worked. I was Jessica, the girl who had built something, who had claimed something. But my parents didn't see pride in that moment. They saw something else. My father stepped out of the house, wiping his hands on a rag, his expression unreadable. My mother followed, her brows knitted. Sophia squealed, of course, running her hands along the hood like it was hers. "You bought this?" my mom asked, her voice sharp. "With my savings," I said proudly, my grin so wide it hurt. My dad shook his head slowly. "That's a lot of money, Jess. Was that smart?" "Smart?" I laughed nervously. "Dad, this is my dream. I worked for years for this." Sophia pouted, her voice whiny. "It's not fair. You never help me when I need money for things." My mother's eyes softened at her instantly. "Sophia, we'll figure something out for you, don't worry." Then she turned back to me, her expression hard again. "Jessica, don't be selfish. Your sister's future is more important than a car." The words stung, but I brushed them off. I thought, foolishly, that once they saw me driving it, once they saw how much it meant to me, they'd understand. For a few weeks, I was on cloud nine. Every free minute, I was polishing the chrome, tuning the engine, driving it down back roads with the windows down, and the music up. It wasn't just transportation, it was therapy. Then one Saturday, I came home from work, and the driveway was empty. At first, I thought maybe my dad had moved it to the garage. But when I opened the door, the garage was bare. My heart sank. "Where's my car?" I asked, my voice trembling, as I walked into the kitchen. My mother didn't look up from her phone. "We sold it." The world tilted. "You what?" My father was sitting at the table, arms crossed. "Sophia needed the money for school expenses. We can't just let her fall behind. You'll understand one day." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My dream, my years of sacrifice, the car that had carried all my hope, it was gone. "You sold my car?" My voice cracked, louder this time. "Without asking me?" "You're living under our roof," my dad said coldly. "Everything here is family property. You don't just get to hoard money while your sister struggles." I felt like I'd been punched. It wasn't family money, it was mine. I saved every cent. I worked for years. "Enough," my mom snapped. "Sophia is younger. She has a future ahead of her. You'll get over a car." She can't get over missing opportunities. I looked at Sophia then, sitting smugly on the couch with her new laptop open in front of her, not even meeting my eyes. Something inside me broke. I ran upstairs, slammed my door, and for the first time in years, I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, grief gave way to something sharper.
Rage.
They thought they could take what was mine, and I'd just let it go. They thought I'd swallow it like every other slight, every other dismissal. But this was different. This time, I wasn't going to let it go. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the red paint gleaming in the sun, the way the engine rumbled under my hands, the way my chest swelled with pride when I drove it. And every time, the image shattered into the sound of my mother's voice. We sold it. By morning, my eyes were swollen and raw, but the fire in my chest hadn't dimmed. I walked into the kitchen where my parents were sipping coffee, acting like nothing had happened, like they hadn't ripped years of my life away. Sophia was perched on the counter stool with her brand new laptop open, scrolling through some clothing website like she hadn't just stolen my dream. "Where's the money?" I asked, my voice sharp. My father glanced up. "It's gone. We transferred it to cover Sophia's tuition and supplies." "Tuition and supplies?" I repeated, my hands trembling. "You mean my car, the one I saved for, worked for, lived for? That was just tuition and supplies to you?" My mother rolled her eyes. "Jessica, stop being dramatic. You'll have other cars. Your sister only gets one education." "Other cars?" My laugh came out bitter and cracked. "Do you have any idea how many years I worked for that Mustang? How many nights I skipped meals, skipped going out with friends, skipped living my life, so I could save for that car? And you just sold it?" Sophia finally looked up, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Jess, it's not that deep. You don't need a fancy old car. I needed this laptop, I needed the money. You're older, you'll figure things out." My head snapped toward her, my hazel eyes burning. "Figure things out?" "Sophia, that car wasn't a toy, it was my dream. And you sat there and watched them take it from me like it was nothing." She shrugged, twirling her hair around her finger. "Maybe you shouldn't have left it in the garage if it was that important." My jaw dropped. It wasn't theirs to sell. "Enough," my father barked, slamming his mug on the table. "Jessica, you live under this roof.
You don't get to talk to us like that."
We made a decision that was best for the family. One day, you'll thank us." "Thank you." My voice rose, shaky but fierce. "You expect me to thank you for stealing from me? For treating me like I don't matter? You've always put Sophia first, but this was too far." The silence that followed was heavy, charged. My mother's face hardened. "Don't make yourself the victim. We raised you, we gave you food, clothes, a roof. Don't act like we owe you more." Something inside me twisted. All my life, I had swallowed those words. "We gave you everything. Be grateful." But standing there, my dream stolen, I finally saw it for what it was, not love, but leverage. "You didn't give me everything," I said quietly, my voice breaking. "I gave myself everything. I worked for that car. I worked for my independence. And you took it away because you can't stand that I had something that wasn't yours to control." My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. My father's jaw clenched. Sophia smirked, like she'd already won. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. They thought they had crushed me. But what they didn't realize was that they had lit something in me instead. I didn't say another word. I walked out of the kitchen, grabbed my jacket, and left. That day, I drove aimlessly in my beat-up old Civic, the car I had driven since high school, the one I had prayed would last long enough until I could afford something better. It rattled and groaned as I pressed on the gas, the complete opposite of the Mustang. Every mile I drove felt like salt in a wound. But with every turn of the wheel, I thought and planned. By the time I parked outside a coffee shop, I knew two things. One, my parents had betrayed me in a way I could never forgive. And two, I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything: dates, conversations, proof of the sale. I called the dealership where they had sold the car and begged for details, but the man on the phone said it was already gone, purchased by another buyer. My chest ached, but I pressed on. When I got home that evening, Sophia was bragging to a friend on the phone about her new setup and how her amazing parents had helped her out. I stood in the hallway listening, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. That night, I pulled Sophia aside. "You're going to pay me back," I said flatly. She blinked, confused. "What?" "You heard me. Every cent they gave you came from my car, my savings, my work. You're going to repay it." She laughed, an ugly sound. "Jess, don't be ridiculous. I don't have that kind of money." "Then you'd better figure it out," I said, my voice steady for the first time. "Because I'm not letting this go." Her smirk faltered. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious," I whispered. The next day, my parents confronted me again, anger simmering in their voices. "You have no right to demand money from your sister," my father growled. "She has no right to spend money that wasn't hers," I shot back. "She's family," my mother snapped. "So am I said, my voice breaking. "But you never treat me like it." The silence that followed was deafening. For once, they didn't have a comeback. I walked away, my heart pounding, but for the first time in days, I felt the smallest spark of control. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days after my declaration were tense, like living in a house with a ticking bomb. Every meal, every glance, every word felt laced with unspoken resentment. My parents thought I was bluffing. Sophia thought I'd get over it. None of them realized that this time, I wasn't letting go. I started small. Sophia had grown used to me bailing her out in little ways, driving her to classes, covering her half of the gas bill, even lending her clothes she never returned. Not anymore. The next time she asked me to drive her to campus because her Uber money was low, I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Pay me back what you owe me first." Her jaw dropped. "You can't be serious, Jess. You're really going to be petty over a ride?" "Petty," I repeated, my hazel eyes narrowing. "You took $26,000 of my hard-earned money. You can walk." Her face flushed, but she stomped off, muttering something about how selfish I was. For once, I didn't care. Then it was groceries. Normally, I'd pitch in quietly when Mom asked. But the next time she handed me the list, I pushed it back across the table. "Ask Sophia. She has my car money." My mother's eyes widened. "Jessica, don't drag your sister into this." "She's already in it," I said calmly. The look on her face told me she hated being reminded of the truth. Good. Sophia wasn't used to responsibility. She had floated through life, cushioned by excuses and my parents' protection. But I was done cushioning her. If she wanted to play adult, she was going to learn what it cost. I began keeping receipts. Every time I bought groceries for myself, filled up my car, or paid for utilities, I saved the slip. I taped them into a notebook with a heading, "Sophia's debt." It wasn't about the exact numbers. It was about making her see in black and white the cost of everything she took for granted. One night, I left the notebook open on the kitchen counter, knowing she'd see it. When I came back from work, it was gone. I found it later in her room, stuffed under a pile of clothes. "Why are you spying on me?" she snapped when I confronted her. I held up the notebook. "Why are you hiding the truth?" Her face turned red. "Because you're making me look bad. You made yourself look bad the second you let Mom and Dad sell my car for you," I shot back. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. But my parents weren't about to let me win quietly. At dinner a few nights later, my father leaned back in his chair, his voice low and deliberate. "You're tearing this family apart with your attitude, Jessica. All because of a car." I set my fork down carefully, my hands steady, even though my heart raced. "No, Dad. I'm holding this family accountable. Because of the way you betrayed me." My mother sighed, her face weary. "Jess, you're making yourself miserable. Can't you just forgive and move on?" "Forgive?" I laughed bitterly. "Forgive that you sold my dream without even asking me? That you gave everything I worked for to Sophia like I didn't exist? You don't want forgiveness. You want silence." And I'm done being silent. The room went quiet. My parents exchanged a glance, and I knew they didn't recognize me anymore. The girl who swallowed their decisions, who bent so Sophia could shine. She was gone. But this was only the beginning. The next week, I made a move that stunned them. I got a part-time job at a garage across town. Not because I needed the money, but because I needed the skills. Every shift, I learned more about engines, restorations, bodywork. I was determined that one day, I'd buy another Mustang. And this time, no one would touch it. When I came home with grease on my hands, my father scoffed. So, what? You're a mechanic now. If that's what it takes, I said coolly. My mother's lips pursed. Sophia rolled her eyes. But I saw something flicker in their expressions, something that looked a lot like fear. Because for the first time, I was building a life they couldn't control. But I wasn't done with Sophia yet. One afternoon, she waltzed into my room without knocking, waving a shopping bag. "Look what I bought with my student refund check," she said proudly, pulling out designer sneakers. I stared at them, my jaw tightening. "You're using my car money for sneakers?" She laughed. "It's not your money anymore. Get over it." That was the last straw. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of the sneakers, and added it to the Sophia's debt notebook. Next to the photo, I wrote in bold letters, "Every cent counts." Later that night, I slipped the page under her door. The scream that followed was worth every ounce of my rage. "Jess, you're insane," she shouted, storming into my room. "You can't keep tabs on me like this." "You don't like it?" I said evenly. "Then pay me back." Her face twisted. "You're obsessed." "No," I whispered, stepping closer, my hazel eyes locked on hers. "I'm teaching you a lesson. You took from me without remorse. Now you'll remember every day what you owe." She stormed out, slamming the door. My parents rushed in minutes later, scolding me for tormenting her. But I just sat calmly on my bed, notebook open in my lap. Let them rage. Let them call me cruel. For once, I didn't feel powerless. For once, I felt like justice was inching closer. But justice has a funny way of snowballing. What started as a notebook and a few sharp words was about to grow into something much bigger. Because Sophia was about to learn that debt isn't just a number on a page. It's a weight. And sooner or later, it crushes you. Debt is invisible until it isn't. That's what I realized as I watched Sophia strut around the house with her new gadgets, new clothes, new attitude. She didn't feel the weight of what she owed me because she thought she'd never have to pay it back. My parents reinforced that illusion, shielding her from reality, like they always had. But illusions can be shattered. I started with boundaries. Simple, deliberate acts that made her feel the absence of my support. When she asked to borrow my car for a quick trip, I shook my head. "Gas money first." She laughed, flipping her hair. "Jess, you're such a control freak." "Then take the bus," I replied. Her smirk faltered. She wasn't used to me pushing back. Next came utilities. I stopped covering the Wi-Fi bill, a task I had quietly done for months, while everyone else enjoyed free streaming and endless scrolling. When the internet cut out, Sophia stomped into my room like a hurricane. "What did you do?" she snapped. I leaned back in my chair, calm. "I stopped paying for what no one appreciated. If you want Wi-Fi, pay for it. Or," I held up my notebook, tapping the growing list, "start chipping away at what you owe me." Her face flushed crimson. "You can't hold the internet hostage." "I can," I said evenly. And I just did. She stormed out, slamming the door. An hour later, I heard her arguing with our parents. By nightfall, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. "Jessica, this has to stop. You're making life unbearable for your sister." I turned to her slowly, meeting her eyes. Life is unbearable when your dreams are stolen. If Sophia wants comfort, she can pay for it. That's how the real world works. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't argue further, and that silence told me something important. Deep down, she knew I was right. But Sophia didn't learn. Not yet. A week later, she threw a party while my parents were out of town. I came home from a late shift at the garage to find the living room packed with people, music blaring, pizza boxes stacked on the counter. And parked outside, my Civic, the one car I had left, reeked of smoke and spilled beer. Rage shot through me like lightning. I stormed inside, weaving through strangers, and found Sophia laughing on the couch, a drink in her hand. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted over the music. She blinked at me, feigning innocence. "Relax, Jess. It's just a party." "My car smells like a bar." I snapped. "Did you even ask me before taking it?" Her smirk returned. "It's not a big deal. You'll get over it. You always do." But I didn't get over it.
Not this time.
I grabbed the remote, turned off the music, and faced the stunned crowd. "Party's over. Everyone out." Groans and protests filled the room, but my voice cut through them like a blade. I set out. Slowly, grudgingly, they left. Sophia stood, her face twisted in fury. "You ruined everything. Do you have to control every part of my life?" I stepped closer, my hazel eyes burning. "I don't control your life, Sophia. I'm just finally controlling mine. And you don't get to trash it anymore." She shoved past me, storming up the stairs. I followed, notebook in hand. When she slammed her door, I slipped a new page underneath. "Party cleanup. $300. Added to your debt." The scream that followed was loud enough to wake the neighbors. The next morning, my father confronted me, his face dark with anger. "Jessica, this obsession is unhealthy. You're tearing this house apart." I held up the notebook calmly. "No, Dad. This house was already broken. I'm just keeping score." He glared at me, but he didn't take the notebook. Maybe because deep down, even he knew the debt was real. But Sophia still refused to bend. She paraded around with her new clothes, flaunted the laptop, acted like the money she owed me didn't exist. So, I changed tactics. At the garage, I asked my boss if I could take on extra shifts, not for money but for access. He raised a brow, but agreed. I started working on side projects, fixing up cheap cars I bought off classifieds, learning how to flip them for profit. Within months, I had saved enough to make a down payment on another classic, not a Mustang this time, but a beat-up Camaro that needed love. When I rolled it into the driveway, grease on my hands and determination in my chest, my parents were stunned. Sophia came out, her eyes wide. "You bought another one?" she demanded. I smirked.
No.
"I built this one." The Camaro wasn't perfect, not yet. But it was mine, every bolt and wire touched by my hands. And more importantly, it was a symbol. They couldn't stop me. Sophia's envy was palpable. She started dropping hints about wanting a car of her own. One night, she said sweetly, "Jess, maybe you could teach me how to save, like you did?" I looked at her, my hazel eyes cold.
Why?
"So you can spend my money again?" "No thanks." Her smile faltered. But I wasn't cruel for cruelty's sake. I wanted her to learn, to feel the weight she had avoided all her life. So when she asked again, I handed her the notebook. "Start here," I said. "Repay what you owe. Then we'll talk." Her face twisted, but for the first time, I saw hesitation in her eyes, a crack in her armor. My parents were furious when they found out. They cornered me in the living room, their voices raised. "You're bullying your sister," Mom cried. "You're making this house toxic," Dad barked. I stood my ground.
No.
"I'm teaching her accountability. Something you never did." Their faces froze. My words had hit the mark. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I felt the tide turning. Sophia was rattled. My parents were defensive. And me? I was stronger than I'd ever been. They thought selling my dream car would break me. But all it did was teach me how to fight. And soon, they were going to learn that debts always come due. By the time spring rolled around, my notebook was thick with entries. Every pizza, every careless Uber ride, every unnecessary purchase I'd witnessed Sophia flaunt, documented, dated, and added to the growing total. The number wasn't just about money anymore. It was about proof. Sophia liked to pretend none of it mattered. She still strutted through the house in her designer sneakers, tossing her hair, bragging about her college hustle. But cracks were starting to show. She'd snap at me when I walked into a room, mutter under her breath when she thought I couldn't hear, slam doors louder than necessary. She was cracking, and I wanted her to. Because the truth was, I wasn't just fighting for a car anymore. I was fighting for recognition, for every time I had been dismissed, overshadowed, silenced in favor of her comfort. The real turning point came at a family gathering. It was my cousin Elena's engagement party, held at a rented hall with balloons, music, and a buffet spread. I almost didn't go, but something in me knew this was a chance. I arrived in my oil-stained jeans and simple blouse, fresh off a shift at the garage. My parents frowned when they saw me, clearly embarrassed, while Sophia sparkled in a new dress that probably cost more than my week's wages. She was surrounded by relatives, holding court like always, painting herself as the golden child. I kept to myself, nibbling on a plate of pasta, until I overheard her. "Yeah, I just got a new MacBook for school," she bragged, flipping her hair. "Mom and Dad always make sure I'm taken care of." Something in me snapped. I walked over, my hazel eyes locking on hers. "Funny, Sophia. You forgot to mention it wasn't Mom and Dad, it was me. They sold my car to buy that MacBook." The group fell silent. Forks froze midair, eyes widened. Sophia's face turned crimson. "Jess, shut up." "No," I said, my voice steady. "They sold my dream car, the one I saved for years to buy. And they gave it all to you. Every cent. And you've never once said thank you. Never once admitted what you owe me." Whispers rippled through the circle. My aunt looked scandalized. My uncle frowned. Even Elena's fiancé raised a brow. Sophia's lips trembled. "That's not true." I pulled out my phone, swiping to a photo of her laptop with the note I'd taped beside it. "It is. I keep receipts. And if you want, I can show everyone the debt book. Every cent you've spent since then. Every cent you owe." The room buzzed louder now, heads turning, eyes burning into her. My mother appeared suddenly, her voice sharp. "Jessica, enough. This isn't the place." "Yes, it is." I cut her off, my voice trembling but loud. "Because this is the only way anyone will ever see the truth. You've always protected her, always made me out to be the selfish one. But tell me, Mom, what's selfish about working for something for years, only to have it stolen?" Gasps echoed. My father stepped forward, his face dark. "Jessica, sit down." I stood taller, my hazel eyes locking on his.
No.
"I've sat down my whole life. Not anymore." The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Sophia's mascara smudged as she blinked rapidly, clearly humiliated. My parents seethed, but they couldn't undo what I had done. The curtain was lifted. The rest of the night was icy. Conversations hushed when we walked by. My parents left early, dragging Sophia behind them. I drove home alone in my Civic, my hands trembling on the wheel. Was it cruel? Maybe. But for the first time, she had tasted the weight of accountability. The fallout came the next morning. "Are you happy?" my father roared, slamming his fist on the kitchen table. "You embarrassed this family in front of everyone." I crossed my arms.
No.
"You embarrassed yourselves the day you sold my car." My mother's eyes burned. "You're destroying us, Jessica." "No," I whispered. "I'm saving myself." Sophia appeared at the doorway, her face pale. She looked at me, then at the floor. For once, she didn't have a snide remark. That silence was victory enough. But I didn't stop there. I started forwarding her bills. Every time a utility came due, every time she borrowed something without asking, I wrote it down and slid the total across the table. She hated it. She ranted to my parents, called me obsessive, but the more she resisted, the more obvious it became. She wasn't used to responsibility, and I was forcing her to face it. Then came the job. I heard from a mutual friend that Sophia had applied for a retail position at the mall. I knew she wasn't serious. She had never worked a day in her life, but I also knew her funds were thinning. So when she came home one evening, Slamming her bag down, I asked casually, "How was the interview?" She glared. "They said they'd call." I smirked. "Good. Maybe now you'll start paying back what you owe." Her cheeks flushed red. "You're never going to let this go, are you?" "No," I said simply. "Not until you pay me back." Days later, she came home with her first paycheck, tiny, barely enough for gas and coffee. But I saw the shift in her eyes. The realization that money didn't just appear because she wanted it, that it cost sweat, hours, patience. I left a note on her bed that night. $50 payment accepted. Balance remaining, $25,950. Her scream echoed down the hallway. But beneath the anger, I saw it, fear. The fear of someone who finally knew she couldn't run forever. And for me, that was enough to keep going. Because I wasn't done teaching her yet. Not by a long shot. By the time summer hit, Sophia couldn't escape me. The notebook had become a shadow that followed her everywhere, a physical reminder of the debt she owed and the betrayal that started it all. Every page was a mirror she couldn't look away from, no matter how hard she tried. At first, she fought back with drama. She cried to my parents that I was harassing her. She slammed doors and accused me of ruining her mental health. She tried to turn neighbors and relatives against me with stories of how I was obsessed with money. But something had shifted. People didn't buy it anymore. Not after the engagement party. Not after the truth slipped out in front of witnesses. Her tantrums didn't make me look cruel. They made her look guilty. One Saturday morning, I walked into the kitchen to find my parents whispering furiously, Sophia sitting at the table with tears streaking her face. They fell silent when I entered, but I didn't slow my steps. I poured coffee, sat across from her, and opened the notebook with a calmness that made her flinch. "Balance," I said, tapping the page with my pen. $25,750. Her lip trembled. "I can't pay that." "Then get another job," I said evenly. "Or stop spending like money grows on trees." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Jessica, this ends now. You're tearing your sister apart." I met his glare, my hazel eyes steady.
No.
"I'm holding her accountable. Something you never did." My mother hissed, "She's your sister." "And I was your daughter." I shot back, my voice cracking with anger. "But you sold my car like I was nothing. Don't talk to me about loyalty." The room fell silent. Even Sophia looked stunned. For the first time, I saw guilt flicker in her eyes. But guilt didn't equal change. She kept trying to cheat the system, hiding receipts, pretending expenses didn't exist, begging friends to cover her costs. But word was spreading. People knew what she had done. And when one of her professors asked me, privately, if it was true that Sophia's tuition had been paid with my inheritance, I didn't lie. "Yes," I said softly. "They sold my dream car for her education." The professor's frown said enough. Sophia's golden girl image was cracking everywhere she went. She confronted me that night, storming into my room. "You're destroying my reputation." I looked up from my journal.
No.
"You're destroying your own reputation. I'm just not covering for you anymore." Her voice shook with rage. "Why can't you just let it go?" "Because I let everything else go," I said bitterly. "Every dance lesson you got while I stayed home. Every new phone while I used a cracked screen. Every excuse mom and dad made while I worked double shifts. I let it all go. But this?" I held up a photo of the Mustang, its red paint gleaming. "This I won't let go." Her shoulders sagged, and for the first time, she didn't scream back. She just left, slamming the door softly instead of violently. That's when I knew the power had shifted. The final blow came at a community fundraiser. I had been volunteering through the garage, helping repair donated cars for families in need. The local paper wrote a piece about it, even snapping a photo of me in grease-stained jeans with a wrench in hand. At the fundraiser dinner, the mayor himself thanked me for my work. "Jessica here reminds us that hard work and integrity always pay off," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Applause filled the room. My chest swelled, my hazel eyes stinging with tears I refused to let fall. And in the back of the room? My parents and Sophia. Their faces were pale, their expressions unreadable. They weren't the center of praise anymore. I was. Afterward, Sophia cornered me outside. Her mascara was smudged, her voice desperate. Jess, please stop. I can't take it anymore. Everyone's looking at me like I'm a thief. I met her eyes, steady and unflinching. That's because you are. She flinched, but didn't argue. You wanted to stop? I continued. Then repay me. Every cent, own up to what you did. Until then, you live with the truth. Her lips trembled, but she nodded once before hurrying away. That night, I wrote a new line in the notebook. For the first time, she didn't deny it. The next weeks were different. Sophia was quieter, more withdrawn. She skipped parties, stopped flaunting new clothes, even picked up extra shifts at her retail job. Every Friday, she slipped a crumpled bill or two into my hand without a word. It wasn't much, but it was something. My parents hated it. They accused me of breaking her spirit, of being vindictive. But when I looked at Sophia handing me that money, eyes downcast, I didn't see cruelty. I saw growth. And for me, I saw justice. Because they thought selling my dream car would teach me to accept my place in the family, to sacrifice for Sophia, to stay silent. But all it did was teach me that silence was the worst prison of all. And I was never going back. By autumn, the balance in my notebook had begun to shrink. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably. Sophia was paying me back. At first in tiny increments, 10s, then 20s. Then larger amounts, when she picked up extra shifts or stopped buying the things she once flaunted. For every deposit, I wrote a line in neat ink. Payment received. Balance remaining. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about watching her face every cent, watching her learn, one crumpled bill at a time, what it meant to steal someone's dream. But my parents hated every second. This has gone too far, my mother said one evening, slamming her hand on the kitchen counter. You're humiliating her. I looked up from my coffee, calm. She humiliated herself the day she let you sell my car. My father's face was red with fury. She's your sister. And I'm her daughter, I said softly, my voice steady. But you never chose me. You chose her every single time. You made me invisible. You thought you could erase me. But look around, Dad. You didn't erase me. You made me stronger. Silence filled the kitchen. For once, they had no reply. Sophia avoided me for weeks, barely speaking beyond quick exchanges when she handed me cash. But then came the moment everything broke open. It was Thanksgiving. Our extended family gathered again, cousins and uncles and aunts buzzing around the long table. Sophia arrived late, looking pale and tired, her retail uniform still creased from her shift. She sat quietly, avoiding the spotlight she used to bask in. I stayed silent at first, passing dishes, answering polite questions about my work at the garage. But then my uncle asked casually, So, Sophia, how's school? Still living off your sister's car fund? The table went silent. All eyes turned. Sophia froze, her fork clattering against her plate. Her lips trembled, and then, to my surprise, she nodded. Yes, she whispered. I did. I let Mom and Dad sell Jessica's car for me. And I regret it every day. The air was thick with shock. My mother's face went pale, my father's jaw clenched, but no one interrupted. Sophia's hazel eyes, so much like mine, lifted to meet the table. I've been paying her back. Slowly. I know it'll take years, but I will. Because she deserved better than what we did to her. Whispers spread like fire around the table. For once, no one looked at me with pity or skepticism. They looked at me with respect. My throat tightened, but I stayed quiet, letting her words hang in the air. It wasn't my fight to explain anymore. It was hers. After dinner, she pulled me aside into the chilly night air. She looked smaller somehow, her confidence stripped bare. Jess, she whispered, her voice shaking, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. But I wanted you to know, I see it now. I see what I did. And I am sorry. For a long moment, I just stared at her, memories flooding back. Every insult, every smirk, every dismissal. the sound of my Mustang's engine, the hollow ache when I saw the empty driveway. And then I nodded. I don't forgive you yet, but I believe you're trying. Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, I believed they were real. That night, I went home and opened my notebook. I stared at the pages, dozens of them, each one a record of betrayal and accountability. Slowly, deliberately, I closed it, not because the debt was fully paid, it wasn't, but because I realized the weight of it was no longer mine to carry. It was hers. Months later, I bought another car. Not the same cherry red Mustang, I knew nothing could replace it, but a project car I restored with my own hands. When I drove it out of the garage, engine purring, I felt something deeper than pride. I felt free. Because the truth was, my parents had never wanted me to shine. They wanted me to sacrifice, to disappear so Sophia could thrive. Selling my car was supposed to remind me of my place. Instead, it reminded me of my power. And Sophia? She would carry the lesson for the rest of her life, that debts don't vanish, that betrayal leaves marks, that selfishness always has a cost. As for my parents, they never apologized. I don't think they ever will. But they don't control me anymore. Their voices don't echo in my decisions. Their favoritism doesn't define my worth. I define me. Sometimes, late at night, I still dream of the Mustang. The way it roared, the way the wheel fit in my hands, the way it made me feel invincible. In those dreams, I always wake with a pang of grief. But it passes quickly now, replaced by something steadier. Because they can take a car, but they can't take who I've become. And that is worth more than every cent.